So if you guys saw my last video, I'm sure a lot of you guys know that I went to a 술bange 2 weeks ago, which is basically this whole group speed dating situation that you can go to. You guys wanted some tea, and I am about to give you guys a detailed rundown of what happened that night. Brace yourselves. This story is gonna get long. So the surbange that I ended up going to was a 8 to 10 p.m. meeting in Jongno, Seoul for 20 to 30 year olds. I arrived basically at 8 p.m. on the dot, and at the entrance there were about 2 guys, I think they were friends, who were lurking around the entrance. They were both kind of hesitating, but then our eyes met, and then we both understood that we were all going to the same place. So we went up the stairs, 3 stories, to this one room with 50 guys sitting in dead silence. And at this point, I'm like really nervous because everyone's looking around, everyone's kind of like eyeing each other out. And because I was one of the last ones in with the 2 other friends, everyone was staring at us. But there was a guy at the entrance who asked for $15, which was gonna cover the expense of the alcohol, the food, and the entrance fee, which I think is pretty fair. And basically the guy sat us in tables of 4. And right across from me was one of the guys that came up with me. And yeah, he was kind of cute. He was cute, but also very quiet. Now we were all sitting there in awkward silence, but then the cute guy sitting across from me asked, "What do you want to drink?" And I think he meant alcohol, but there's only beer or soju, so I basically said beer because I hate soju. And yeah, we all poured each other drinks and we started having a natural conversation. Where are you from? Is this your first time? Did you come with a friend or did you come alone? Then all of a sudden, the guy who was at the front who took our entrance fee picked up a mic and started giving us talking points. He'd be like, ask everyone what their ideal type is, or ask them what they're doing for Christmas, you know? Which basically helped getting our conversation started. And then once we were a little bit more comfortable and acquainted with each other, we started playing some light drinking games. Now 30 minutes in, right when I thought that everything was kind of moving along, the guy at the front said, we are all going to be switching seats now. I'm gonna give you a number and you are to move to that designated seat number. So I go to my designated seat and there's this other guy across the room who is just like eyeing me. He's just staring at me. And he walks up to me and he's like, Are you? And I was like, am I what? And he's like, are you from that one show? And I was like, if you're referring to His Man Too, yes, I'm from His Man Too. And he's like, I knew it. I knew you were from that show. He's like, I knew I recognized you from somewhere. And then everyone was looking and they were like, what show? Oh my gosh, who? And this was a reason why I came prepared and wore a hat, because I didn't want people recognizing me. And usually when people recognize me, they try to be a little bit more discreet. He was just being very loud and inappropriate about it, but he was kind of tipsy. So I was just like, whatever. Now the second table that I sat at was kind of a bust. There wasn't really much going on. The guy next to me had just broken up with his boyfriend the day before. We'd be talking about like MBTI or something, and I'd be like, oh yeah, my MBTI is INFP, and he'd stare at me. He'd be like, oh, my last boyfriend was an INFP. Sir, you are not well. I know how you're feeling, but you should probably take some time to process before you come to a place like this. But everything else was good. We were playing some more casual drinking games, and I eventually lost one of the games. But then, all of a sudden, the guy at the front said, we're gonna switch things up a bit. Instead of the penalty being drinking, we're gonna have the guy who just lost stand up, look around the room, find a guy that he likes, and ask them to take a love shot with them. Now look, I came to this surbange to come out of my shell, be a little bit more bold, take a risk, but my introverted ass did not expect to have to go up to a random guy and ask to take a love shot with them. Oh! So if I'm being honest, there were quite a few guys that I was kind of interested in at the surbange. One of the guys being this really young 22-year-old guy who's obviously like way too young for me, but this guy was probably one of the most aesthetically handsome guys in that whole entire room. Literally looked like he could be a K-pop idol. Now I was trying to discreetly pass by him in this narrow space, but I was kind of struggling because there was not that much space. So I was like, and then this little shithead faces right towards me, smiles, puffs out his chest and takes up as much space as he can while blocking my way, and he's like, like he's trying to block me from going through, and oh my gosh, it was so annoying. but it was also really cute at the same time. And he also told me I look 22. Absolutely ridiculous. So the other guy that I was interested in, he looked very similar to Seongho from my season of His Man, except he was like a doe-eyed chibi version of Seongho. He just looked so pretty, and every time our eyes met, he would just give me the most beautiful smile, and I would literally melt in my seat. And he just kept staring at me every so often and would just give me the brightest, happiest, beautiful, adorable smile. I don't know, like, I was flustered. But unfortunately, both those guys were kind of intimidating. In that moment, while I'm standing up looking for a guy to take a love shot with, I needed a safe space. But that's when I saw him. Sitting at the table right behind me, I met eyes with the first cute guy that came in with me and sat across from me at the first table. And we had already had this extensive conversation, so I felt comfortable enough to kind of nonchalantly walk up to him and be like, hey, I'm sorry for doing this, but would you like to take a love shot with me? And thank God he did not look disgusted with me. But he actually just gave me a very cute smile and was like, oh yeah, sure. And yeah, we took a love shot together. And then we finally shifted our tables one last time for the night. Now the last table shift was a free-for-all, so I just quickly sat down at any open table, and then the first guy who ended up joining me tapped me on my shoulder and said, hey, I heard you lived in this part of Incheon. And I was like, oh yeah, that's where I live. And he's like, oh my gosh, I actually lived there too. He literally lived like 5 minutes away from my place, walking distance. He also spoke fluent English, he was training to be a vet tech, and yeah, our conversation was kind of flowing. But then, as soon as things started clicking, the second person who ended up sitting at our table was the guy that I just took the love shot with. Now, I don't even remember who the fourth guy was, but at this point, I was so overstimulated. I was in a good mood, I was slightly tipsy, and we were just having this natural conversation without even following any of the talking points. And as we were talking, I found out that the friend who came with the guy I took a love shot with ended up finding someone at the surbonge and just dipped. So the love shot guy, he was a little bit bummed because he thought his friend had just dipped on him. While me and my Incheon buddy, we were originally planning on taking the last train home. But then, because we were having such a good time, the three of us collectively decided that we were going to continue the night at Itaewon together and just see where the night took us. So the three of us, we all ended up going to Itaewon and started partying there until we were dead tired. And then before we all separated, we exchanged contact infos, and yeah, the love shot guy went on his way home, and me and the Incheon guy, we split a cab together and went home back to our neighborhood. So that's everything that happened at the surbonge. And tonight, I am supposed to be meeting one of them for dinner.